Adele, welcome to Spark TV. It's so good to have you.
Thank you for having me, Danielle. So delighted to receive your email, not just because we had one of those lovely meetings at a networking event, but that you're also in Kalgoorlie, and I used to live in Kalgoorlie. So it's delightful to be with you again.
I'm so happy about it. And it was such a good meeting, wasn't it? You know,
It
how many
was.
networking events do you go to and you're like, I'd like to exit stage left ASAP. And we
I
were
feel like
like, we're closing this place down.
no, I can't stop talking. I feel like networking events are something of an adventure sport.
Yes.
You never know what's going to happen. You kind of have to be a bit amped up before you go, and you've just got to kind of jump off the cliff
And you need to
and
have a
see who
wine.
catches you.
Yeah.
Yes. Although sometimes that's not useful.
Yeah, depending how there's like a point of no return. Sometimes maybe after the second or third, it's like, okay, rein it in.
Call it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, so good. Well, let's clue everyone in the Spark community into what you do. Tell us just a little bit about you and what it is you actually do.
Great. Well, my core business is that I'm a personal wardrobe stylist. And what that means is that I take people through a transformational process by which I help them connect to their authentic self through their style. I help them organize their wardrobes in a way that serves them and their lifestyle. And I teach them how to shop and dress their body in a way that brings them a lot of joy and happiness. And I do reframing work as well, because both genders are very damning on their bodies, and I like to make our lives a little easier by bringing more joy, by teaching people how to be a lot more lighter and loving with their bodies. But essentially, I'm an image development coach, and personal styling is one part of that. I'm also an MC, and I'm an interview coach as well. So for job interviews or any kind of interview where it's a high stakes game, I do coaching around that.
Oh my God, I did not know that part. So I am so glad that we're here talking today. But I think it's really interesting because I think it doesn't matter like whether you love clothes or hate clothes, like you just can't escape them, right? Like you cannot escape the fact that you
100%.
have to get out of bed every day and put something on your body. Well, it is highly advised to put something on.
Typically, it's useful.
Yeah. Yes. If you want to get anywhere in life, please wear clothes. But it is, I think, it doesn't matter if you love it or hate it, like they form part of our everyday life. And I love that you use the word joy, because I think that there is a lot of trauma that happens around
Yeah,
clothes
that's a good word.
at many ages.
Yeah. And
So
right up until carry on.
No, well, it was just interested me then. So how you got into it, because I think your take on it is really interesting. I've seen stylists on the internets and thought, oh yeah, kind of whatever. But I just love that you have coupled it with this idea of really understanding who you are and understanding your body and your image and changing your mindset. So talk to me how you got there.
Yeah. So yes, to give people context, my work as a personal wardrobe stylist is every personal wardrobe stylist is different. And the institute that I trained at, I completed my master's certificate in professional styling over a 2-year period at the Australian Style Institute in Melbourne. And the institute outputs lots of different stylists, from editorial stylists to those that want to work in the celebrity space, to those that want to do what I do in a one-on-one space. But then there's many iterations of that. I'm someone that craves and conjures authenticity in every area of my life. And I feel that it can be a tough way to go because you can't escape yourself, but I feel that it unlocks the highest form of joy, happiness, self-concurrency. And I encourage that with my clients. And I feel like lots of us feel that style is something that's external to us, and because we don't look like the women, the men in the advertising campaigns, that we can't look good at all. And that's so disappointing, because as you say, we have to wear clothes all the time. Even just if it's comfortable clothes or corporate clothes, they are gateways to opportunity, and they are the most specific way to tell people who we are
Mm.
without talking. And but more than that, they are such a vehicle for good energy and self connection. When you know that when you know that you can go to your wardrobe, and the whole wardrobe is there to serve you, and that it will have pieces that match your mood and the context in which you're living your life on that day, whether it be a casual
Mm.
day, a weekend, a social outing, work, a big meeting, an executive situation, whatever it may be. When you know that you have a connection to each of the pieces in your wardrobe, that you love them and that they fit your body, that is a level of happiness that I bring into my clients' lives, which usually they haven't experienced before, and it is 100% achievable.
Mm.
So that's what I do. And how I got into it, it's a winding road. I'm
I
gonna
love that. I
say,
love that.
yeah, I'm gonna say, my delightful Nana, who's no longer with us, she lived in a small country town, which I grew up in. I grew up on a farm in Pingelly, but Nana had this incredible sense of style.
Mm.
And we're talking a hick town.
Yeah.
And Nana would wear incredible matching box pleats skirts with beautiful satin tops and pearls. And she had this crystal um, set on her dresser with her earrings and her makeup.
Wow.
And she would get dressed up to do Meals on Wheels for people that were younger than her.
Wow.
So the woman had class, and I like that she didn't allow the country town in which she was living in to determine what she felt was the way, how she wanted to feel about in her clothes. So she
Mm.
was really a very early model for me. And the winding road is that I've worked in hospitality, retail, mining, um, government, private sector. I've lived in Scotland, France, Kalgoorlie, Albany, Melbourne,
Wow.
Perth, and all things have put me in positions of leadership in various degrees, whether it be running my own businesses or running teams, running complex events or complex projects. And the coaching aspect, I'm also an athlete and I train and participate in a few different sports. And the coaching aspect I find is a very fulfilling part of the work that I've done. And I've developed a really good skill set around communication and empathy and connection with people. And so I've had this sort of um, track running in my life for ages with Nana and this model that she set me for style and looking and feeling good, and then this coaching aspect of my life, which I've loved. And I married up the two and became a stylist.
And you know what? Something that you just said as well, like the woman had style. And I feel like it had extended beyond her wardrobe. Like the
Oh
fact
yeah,
that she was out there, helping other people. I
yeah.
love that it's not about clothes. I
Mm,
mean, sure, it's about clothes, but
mm,
it is so much more than that. And
mm,
being able to connect with people. I love that you did say that because as much as we, would hope that we don't get judged on initial outwardly appearances, it is
mm,
unfortunately a factor of life. And,
yeah.
being able to put your best foot forward, being able to showcase who you are, what you're about, what you stand for in a non-verbal cue. Um,
Mm.
and I think as well, like that idea of marrying style and style is just so incredible.
Yeah, it's a great job. I've created a great job and a great business for myself in that I get to work in a transformational space with people. I get to hold space whilst they're transforming and being very
Mm,
vulnerable.
mm,
And definitely am a disciple of Brene Brown's work. She talks about living wholeheartedly, and
mm,
wholehearted living is about living with vulnerability. And when people are able to be vulnerable with themselves and with somebody else, with me, I can guide them through a really beautiful process. And it's interesting that you mentioned judgment, because whenever, and I mean whenever, I mention that I'm a stylist, you can imagine what people's first response is.
mm,
They assume, in fact, they give me the right to judge them. And it breaks my little heart because
mm.
judgment has nothing to do with what I do. Has no
Yes.
place. Judgment comes from a place of fear, and that's not at all part of the process. And I think really what people are most afraid of is their own judgment of themselves. Typically,
Yes.
when we're afraid that people are judging us, we know that we're judging ourselves. We're feeling like, and that actually creates a business for me, because people feel innately that they could be doing more with their style, but
Mm.
they just don't know how. So that's usually that point that they reach in their life where they're like, I don't know how to do this and I'm frustrated with why I can't get this done better. I'm going
Mm.
to seek some support. And that's usually when people reach out to me.
It's so true. I mean, I find it interesting because I had the moment myself this morning when
Mm,
I
mm.
was just picking out a t-shirt. Like, how hard is it to be? But it is. It was like I was thinking about my day, and I've got, these kind of podcasts happening, these kind of things. And I had that moment of, why don't you just have like 5 of these things ready to go in your
Mm.
wardrobe? So
Yeah,
it is really interesting. You do like, and you think about it as well, like there's so much, especially in business world, we have this, set your day right, journal, meditate, XYZ. But all that aside, it's like if the first thing that you're doing is selecting what you're wearing for the day, and you are frustrated, and you are
mm.
judging yourself, and you're feeling all of these negative feelings, like you are setting yourself up for a
It's a
bad
lot.
day. It is.
Yeah, it's a lot. And people, look, there's lots to it. And I would say the number one reason why people come to me, and not just everyone's interested in styling, right? Everyone wants to know more about style and would like to feel better in their clothes. But I find that the clients that, if we use a business term, that convert and book, are those that are like, and they go, I'm frustrated,
Mm,
I deserve more,
mm,
and I'm going to get that more. And
mm.
so it comes to a self-worth issue. And I'm not talking about people that have a high self-worth. I'm saying that people want to take that next step in their self-worth to embed a higher degree of self-worth. And that can look many different things to many people. It can be a mum returning to the workforce after being at home with babies for years and going, I've worked hard for a long time in the family home and I want to represent myself really well in the workplace. So I'm going to reinvent myself. Or it can be someone who's uh, re-entering the dating world, or it can be someone who's leveling up in their career by going from middle management to executive. They're all questions of, I want more for my life. I want to show up, do better, be better, and not in a striving sense, but in a sense of, I know there's more for me. And it's usually those clients that are ready. And when I say ready, I also mean there's still a level of fear, because you don't know what
Yeah.
the process looks like, right?
Mm,
And there's that vulnerability. Once I tell people what the process is, they relax into it more. But it's a big question of self-worth.
mm.
And at the end of the process, they always fulfill that intuitive idea that they had, that they thought was possible, by going, I feel better in my clothes. I feel a sense of catharsis that I've let go of all these past selves and I can step in to what the future holds for me. It's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and it's something that I assume is also a bit never done as well. So
Mm,
I remember, I think I was watching, it might have been an
it's
Instagram
constant.
story of yours that was
Mm,
like, we're usually 10 years behind our
mm,
style. And I was like
mm,
thinking about it. And I remember, so I ended 2020, had a breakup of 10 years. And
mm.
I threw everything out. Like I got all new underwear.
Yeah,
And,
cool.
and I was like, I had that moment of like, who am I anymore? Like,
Yeah,
and
wow.
it just
Yeah,
didn't suit me. And I went out and bought a whole new wardrobe, all of the things. But I kind of then reflected after I saw your story, and I was like, oh, I think this is something that actually should always be evolving. It doesn't
it's
have
very
to
true.
just be the big life moments. It can,
Yeah.
you can wake up any day and decide you want to be something more or
Or
different.
different, yeah. And
Mm.
essentially, we are
Mm.
highly nuanced people. And, I would say particularly women, but men as well. We have lots of different roles that we are serving in life, and lots of different things that we feel on any given day.
Mm.
And lots of people, I had a client say to me yesterday, I want to know what my style is. And I was like, great, you will definitely feel that. But let me reframe the word style
Mm.
and say that there is, or the definition of style or the concept of style, there's not one style that is you. And what
Mm,
you learn throughout the process is how to dress in a way that complements your body, makes you
mhm.
feel great, gives you some parameters by which you know when an outfit is working for you or not. Because that's really a missing piece. People are like, it looks good, it doesn't look good. But if I ask them why, they've got no idea. So
Mm,
that's a very important learning. And that becomes perpetual learning then. So that, as you say, when you feel like you want to evolve or you want to experiment, that you've got a confidence base from
yes.
which to go. You know that you will only ever buy clothes that make you feel good, that fit you beautifully, and that serve your lifestyle. And then within that, you'll know why that outfit is working on you and why it isn't.
Mm.
There you go. They are the keys to constant style evolution.
I love it. And I mean, how cool that you get to empower people with those foundations.
Yeah. And that's the idea. The idea isn't that some clients like to have me on call to do an update shot for them simply because they are so time poor.
Mm,
And that's something that they just outsource to me, and that works great for them. But for most people, they're wanting to be educated around their
mm,
style and internalize that knowledge for themselves forever and ever. Amen. And I like to do myself out of a job in that capacity so
yeah.
that someone can get the skills that they need to know. And when I say that, I'm always on call. Like I had a follow-up visit with a client on Monday because she bought a shirt in the shopping experience that she just wasn't 100% happy with. So to embed all the learning, I went back and did another hour with her so she
Mm,
could figure out what was the deal, what the deal was with that shirt and why it didn't quite work for her. And
mm,
we got something else. So people always have access to me, but the point is that the learning happens in the experience, as does the transformation.
mm. I
Mm.
love it. Do you think that this is just a random question that just popped into my mind about women?
Mm,
Like, and because we've talked a little bit about self-worth,
yeah,
and I do wonder whether, because I'm sure you talk to a lot of people who might not actually convert, to put in the business talk, who might
yeah,
be kind of interested in what's possible but maybe don't take the step. Do you think
yeah.
that some women would think that this is a little self-indulgent to look after themselves?
All of them do.
Yeah,
Our
sad.
definition as it is. However, when I'm able to reframe it, but they are softer about it. And in fact, many women book in spite of that feeling. And once
Mhm.
because they know that that's just bullshit, if I can swear.
Yeah, please,
So
I encourage it.
yes, so the reason why I say it's bullshit is because it's based on the idea that a woman's worth is what she is contributing and how she's nurturing other people. So that comes from a
Mm,
very old model of women's roles in life were to be mothers only and wives only, and it's a much more
mm,
complex situation now. But even this morning, a video came up from it might have been the Congress in US, and a male congressman actually said to a female congressman, and it might not have been Congress, but it was very official government situation.
mm,
And the male said to the female, not in a derogatory way, but he goes, "You're actually too nice to do this job." And the response of the female was, "I don't need your pity. I'm here to represent the American people." And it was not astonishing because we're in a
mm,
patriarchy and this is not a man hating statement. This is an objective observation of the fact that we
mm,
live in a patriarchy.
mm.
But that was amazing to me that he was not aware of his bias. And we all have a bias towards men, and we all have a bias that women should be nice, and that's how we're judging them. So to
Yes.
bring it back to um, women and how they approach it, yes, they do feel like they need to qualify it a lot more
Mm.
than what men do. Men just go, that works, I'm going to do it. And women have to go, do the kids need iPads? Is my husband working? Will the kids be looked after? Or even for my single clients, they still have to go, cool, I've never spent this much money on myself before. Is it
Mm,
okay? Is it going to be worth it? Am I being selfish? It's just astonishing. However, that is how we're socialized. So we also must be gracious with ourselves and be aware that this is very deep programming that we're working with. And when it comes to that word selfish, it's almost like that's the worst thing you can call a woman, right?
Mm.
The worst thing you can call a man is weak, and the worst thing that you can call a woman is selfish. And what I love to do is gently ask questions around that selfishness piece. And ultimately, where we arrive at is that if your cup's full, you're going to be in a much better position to be nurturing others. And that for you to connect with yourself in a deeper way, wear clothes that make you feel like who you really are. That increases happiness, that increases joy, that increases opportunity. Where's the selfishness in that? It's actually quite a strategic move. And often for my corporate customers, I put it in the context of training. If you need to up your team management skills, what do? You go and do a training course at the Australian Institute of Management. The same thing. If you need to be fronting up in a way that brings more presence, that is more compelling, that gives you more credibility by the way you dress, then you go and do a training course, aka you do an experience with me. And that's when I put it in that context, people go, okay, yeah, I feel better about it.
It's so true. I mean, it's so interesting because I talk to a lot of business owners about the idea of rest, about the idea of filling your cup, and, you know, taking time away from your business. But, and so now that you're saying these words, I'm like, that's exactly what this is. This is that you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah. And it's a wonderful moment in people's lives because we live a lot of lives within the one lifespan. We have multiple relationships, we have multiple jobs, we have multiple children, we have multiple roles in the community. We do lots of different things. We live in lots of different places. All of those have an accumulative effect on our wardrobe and how we see ourselves. And anything that brings us into the present moment increases our sense of peace, calm, and happiness, and also helps us to start to be more purposeful about where we're going. And so, as you said, that was such an important moment for you when you broke up. You finished that 10-year relationship, and you're like, we are starting at ground zero. I'm getting rid of everything, because all of those clothes have an energetic connection to your past, right?
Yes.
It's wildly powerful. And as a symbol of you letting go of that past relationship, you let go of those clothes. And that's what each of my clients go through. But we hold space.
It was so powerful. I totally, like, if anyone is in this situation, it's a game changer.
It is.
I felt so amazing when I put on my new, and even if it was like just new activewear, I was like walking into the office like a boss, you know, like I felt amazing.
It's agency over your own life, right? It's you going, I choose to do this because this feels like me.
Yeah.
And any moment we get to do that. And I love this idea of acknowledging that we've had lots of lives, but also going, you know what, they're in the past and I'm going to let them go. And I'm so excited. I've got a client next week who she's got 3 wardrobes. And she goes, Adele, I cannot even face these wardrobes because they're so big and it's over 10 years and my shape has changed so many times, but it's actually causing me emotional distress. And I need to come into the present. And it's going to be such a wonderful moment for her. She will feel like she has lost weight and, had a good night's sleep without having actually done anything except for let go of clothes.
Yes. Oh my God, that is so incredible. So cool. Oh, it is. It's really, really cool. So talk to me about, you talked about going through, so your career in leadership positions, coaching positions, leading teams, and then moving into now your own business. What was, I know we're taking a step away from styling, but I'm just interested to know what that transition was like for you. So moving from, I guess, employee to now business owner, what was that experience like for you? And did you buy new clothes?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, I did buy new clothes. I'm always buying new clothes.
That's a
That's
hazard
actually
of
not
the trade.
well, not in a over consuming way, but I have a little, just behind me actually in my office, I have a hamper that is a revolving door of clothes that I'm letting go of. And it's not like it's
Oh.
every week, but I do, if I'm putting something on and I just get frustrated with it, I think to myself, do I need to keep this in my life anymore? And if
Mm.
not, then it goes into the hamper. And then that always creates a vacuum and it enables me to buy something else new that I see that works for my life now.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's a nice system so that it doesn't feel like it's building up and building up.
Mm.
And then it becomes a very big job. However, back to your question of the transition from working
Mm.
full time to business. Yeah, it's hella bumpy. I was ready for it and I needed it, and it suits my personality and it suits all my aspirations. But I was working in local government
Mm.
for over 10 years and private industry in the project management space. I think part of it too, I was in fight or flight because I was working in high stress, high demanding roles that required
Mm.
me to be constantly overreaching and overscheduling and overdoing.
Mm.
And that has been very important. But probably the biggest transition piece is going, yep, I'm letting go of hustle culture. That's not going to
Yes.
serve my life or my business because it's just me and I can apply so many rules to myself. Hustle,
Mm.
hustle, hustle, do. But it's not necessarily going to get me where I need to go in business. But it does in a work context because you're surrounded by everybody doing the same thing.
Mm.
Usually you're overworked. Uh, so yeah, it was bumpy. And I went, so I've done some casual work here and there and some contract work here and there whilst my business has been developing. I've now been in business for 18 months and probably in in truth 6 months full time. There's been intermittent,
Yep.
casual, part-time, whatever work in between. um, and jumping in and being in one headspace instead of
Yes.
being multiple headspaces, that has been a gift.
Mm.
And I'm so glad that that happened sort of in a transition, like not, it happened in stages.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, it's a lot, like insane with clothes, it's 80% psychological, 20% the actual clothes. Same, I feel
Yes.
like with work
Yeah.
and business, it's the same. It's 80% your mindset and
Yep.
20% the actual productivity.
Yes.
So I'm glad that I can say now that I'm very used to waking up and not expecting someone to tell me what to do. I can set my own hours and time and objectives much more intuitively than what I ever could because I was in that high stress, high functioning fight or flight state. It's different and better now.
Yeah, and I do love that idea of taking a staged approach anyway.
Mm,
I'm actually a huge believer in don't quit your day job.
yeah.
Like if you have an idea or a dream or a whatever, you
Mm,
can take the steps to get there. So when the time
yeah.
is right, I do think that, look, I mean, everyone, each to their own. I will
Mm,
support anyone doing anything, but I feel like the financial stress of taking a leap into business just on day one without having built it, I find financial stress can be one of the biggest stresses. So
oh,
if
yeah.
you put that on a business before it's even getting started, it can really hinder your experience. So I'm actually a huge proponent in actually do it in a staged approach, and if that
Yeah.
means cutting back hours or it means project work over full-time work or whatever it looks like for you,
Mm.
people listening, I think that's such a magnificent way to do it.
Yeah, and I have this little reminder that pops up on my phone every day that says, "I'm exactly where I'm meant to be." That
I love that.
there's no being too far in advance or being behind, and there's no way that I was ready to give myself permission to show up in the way that
Mm,
I am showing up for myself now, on social media every day, doing reels
yes.
every day. That level of confidence and consolidation of my business and my business knowledge, that
Mm.
has come over time. And I hate it. I hate being patient. It sucks. Uh, But that growth and that transition, I guess, you know, to use an analogy in nature, if the butterfly in the cocoon, if she transforms too quickly, she'll die. She won't be ready, but she has to stay in that stuck sort of. She has to push up against that cocoon and
Mm.
burst out of it at the right time. If she doesn't fill up the space first, then she she won't survive. So it's been really like I say, I work very intuitively, and I say connected to my authenticity. And I will say I am one of those people that meditates pretty regularly, and that holds a lot of answers, but it's very confronting as well, because it's ultimate responsibility for your own life,
Yeah.
when you're willing to sit in that space and sit in the quiet and the stillness. But when I'm in a front facing role, when I'm working in a transformational space, when I'm requiring my clients to be vulnerable with me, I really don't have any other choice except to be in that space myself.
Yes.
So yes, I couldn't have transitioned. Even if I had $1 million in the bank, I still wouldn't have been able to be working my business full time. It's absolutely had to happen in a
Mm.
staged approach, and I've had to fail at things. Like, I've attempted to have contracts with different people in different project management contexts, and for whatever reason, each of them has actually failed, because ultimately I've needed to be working on my styling business as my core business. And there's still been good outcomes from those contracts. It's not like I didn't do the work, but they didn't have continuity, and for whatever reason, there was all these obstacles that just happened to get in the way.
Mm.
um, because I know that my calling and my business requires me to be in it. But
Yes.
it was through each of those processes, those sort of failed contracts, that I went, you know what, I'm not even going to try and bolster my business with other work for the time being. I'm just going to knuckle down, find the clients, and just keep going and building, staying that one headspace rather than six. And yeah, building my business slowly but surely.
But isn't that amazing how that does happen for a reason, right? Like
Yeah,
at the right time when you were ready, those things didn't work out so that you could hold
yeah,
a little bit more space and a little bit more space and a little bit more space.
exactly. It's so beautiful looking back on it. At the time, it was a fucking mess,
Yeah.
but
When you're
it's
in
so.
it, yeah, it's
You're
horrendous.
like, what the hell, universe? This
Yeah.
is shit.
Yes.
Um, and like, the contracts seemed to come along just at the right time. They were very
Mm.
lucrative. They were using past skill sets that I was happy to draw upon again, and just through the many uh, things that affect contracts, and especially in large organizations, they just didn't have the continuity. And it was disappointing,
Mhm.
and messy, and it took me weeks to get back to my
Mm.
core business. And yes, as you say, so nice to look back on it, but at the time it felt really turbulent. And I think that's, often we look at when things go wrong,
Mm.
we 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 blame ourselves a lot. We have a lot of judgment towards ourselves, but I'm learning to do that less as well, because really, what's the difference between when something is good and when something is bad? It's just how we view it. There's
Yes.
so much infinite learning within each situation. Um, so, when something is good, we can amplify it and hope and try and hang on to it, and then that's eventually going to change as well. And when something is bad, we judge ourselves and how did we get here? And ultimately, that changes as well. So it's
Mm.
nice to be in a space just now where I'm like, cool. At least I'm, progress, not perfection. At least I know that what I'm doing today, my past self wouldn't have been able to do, but it was because of all those decisions that my past self made, that my present self can do what I'm doing.
Oh, we should only ever look back on our past selves and feel grateful that they went
Yeah.
they went through what they went through, and we've
Yes.
we've come out the other side.
Yeah, 100%. It's all learning. It's all learning.
Like, oh, I love it so
Yeah.
much. Oh my God, we could talk all day, but let's leave our Spark community with a last thought.
Sure.
So, reflecting on
Mm.
your journey in business, any advice that you would give to somebody who might be a little stuck in taking the leap? So, someone who's
Mm.
sitting on an idea or a dream or a passion and hasn't quite got up the courage yet to make it happen. Any advice you might give them?
So many things come to mind. And I suppose I'm in this space a lot with my clients because
Mm.
often it can be the difference between them trying a color they may not have tried before, or a top with ruffles that they think looks ridiculous on the rack. And then they put it on and go, well, this is perfect.
I love that.
Um, I would say that awareness of the fear that we have in our lives is a very powerful tool. And ultimately, it's fear that stops us. It's nothing else. It's not material wealth. It's not, um, they are factors, but ultimately, it's the fear that we have of the unknown, of failure, and being aware of that fear and going, I'm not going to wait for the day when this fear goes away. People,
Mm.
that's a fallacy. I had listened to this amazing Mel Robbins podcast, and in a different context, she was talking about guilt. And it was in the context of women wanting to do something for themselves and that they always feel guilty.
Yeah.
And the listener had recorded a message and said, Mel, how can I overcome the guilt? And Mel beautifully said, you can't, you've just got to do it anyway. And the
Mm.
good feelings that come from doing the thing that makes you feel guilty, whether it be having a cup of tea in the middle of the day, or going to a spa, or self-nurturing in a way that feels like we're talking about before, that's not nurturing others.
Mm.
You layer upon layer the good feelings that come from those things, and then that becomes the springboard for the next time you have that moment where you're like, I'm too afraid, I feel guilty, whatever. Don't wait for that feeling to go. Just know that on the other side, there are good things for you. Um, so being aware of the fear and know that there's good things on the other side of that fear is a powerful tool. And also, especially if you're on the precipice of starting a business, look, there's no right way. There's absolutely no right way to do it. And women are terrible perfectionists, and we rob ourselves of a lot of joy because we feel like something needs to be perfect. And to
Mm.
that, I would say, fuck it. Things don't need to be perfect. Things just need to be done. And the calling that you have in your heart and in your life to do this thing, that's your higher self saying, I've already done it. Come on, let's do it. Come on, come and meet me here. And self concurrency is how it's a happiness metric, right? And people who are the highest self concurrency are the happiest people. And self concurrency is, I know what I want and I'm getting what I want. So even in a small act, by you taking out your ABN, dropping down a day at work, putting savings aside, setting up a website, starting your social media, they're all steps where you're saying, I know that I want a business and I'm
Mm.
going to get my business. And that is frightening, and there's a lot to overcome, but ultimately it's your definition of you creating the life that you want and having the happiness that you deserve.
Oh my God, Adele, you are absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your time and infinite wisdom with the Spark community. You're
Thank
absolutely
you.
incredible.
As are you, Danielle. I just love your vibe so much. And I love that you've got this beautiful community happening. And I think it's very special. And we are all just little reflections of that beautiful heart that you have. So thank you for involving me.
Oh my God, I love you. That's amazing.